Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you push, or how intensely you strive, or how carefully you plan everything out, things just somehow seem to backfire in the end? Well, today we're exploring a totally fascinating philosophical text by an author named Xu Feng. And he actually argues that human striving is the root of our problems. Yeah, you heard that right. According to this worldview, true peace is only found by completely surrendering to what he calls the way of nature. In this explainer, we're going to unpack his 8 highly prescriptive principles for life. So get ready, because this is a completely different perspective on how the world actually works. Okay, let's dive into this. The author sets the stage with this really compelling opening thought. The beauty and simplicity of nature can only be truly appreciated after one has experienced the richness of life. Essentially, this text acts as a philosophical guide for anybody who is just tired. Tired of fighting the constant, exhausting ups and downs of life. It proposes that trying to direct things high-spiritedly or constantly pitting yourself against obstacles is just totally unnecessary. The ultimate answer? Surrender. To make these 8 principles super easy to digest, we've gone ahead and synthesized them into 4 main categories. We've got the self, how we interact with the others, the work, and a truly fascinating take on the mind. And then finally, we'll wrap up with the ultimate outcomes of living this way. All right, let's start with our first theme right here, the self, which is all about acceptance and inner peace. So according to Xu Feng's text, absolutely everything is predetermined by nature. The core instruction here is that we have to be entirely content with our current status quo. Whether blessings come for you to enjoy or suffering comes for you to bear, the text dictates that you've got to accept it with pleasure. Literally no worrying, no complaining, and absolutely no anger. Even if you're destined to eat coarse grain and live in a thatched hut, your heart has to remain calm. The author presents these really stark dualities when it comes to envy. Sure, someone else might be destined for the debauchery of villas and luxury cars and this bustling environment, but if your life is destined for bright moons and gentle breezes, well, you can find equal, if not greater contentment just communicating with the spirit of heaven and earth. It's an impartial, completely predetermined setup, and envy just has no place in it. And this brilliantly illustrates the whole concept through a nature metaphor. Think about it. The grass never envies the rich, beautiful peony, and weeping willows, they never envy fruit trees for being full of fruit. In the exact same way, humans should accept their appropriate, predestined arrangements. Everything is exactly as it's supposed to be. Therefore, the author concludes, you really shouldn't envy or admire anyone else. Okay, moving right along to our second theme, the others, and releasing control over others. Now, if you can't control your own destiny, it logically follows that you certainly cannot control anyone else's, right? This section focuses on the absolute futility of making excessive demands on the people around you, whether that's your boss, your employees, your family members, or your spouse. The text uses these fantastic, highly visual examples to show just how absurd it is to force things outside of their natural talents. I mean, imagine demanding that a cat guard your house, or asking a dog to plow a field, expecting a rooster to lay eggs or a sow to give milk. It sounds ridiculous, right? But the author argues that making excessive demands on people is the exact same thing. If someone cooks for you, hey, that is enough. Don't demand the dish be a Michelin star masterpiece. People are born with specific talents, and trying to force them to be something else is just entirely fruitless. So the crucial takeaway is captured in this proverb from the text. Those who hold it, lose it. Those who make it, spoil it. The author actually points directly at parents to explain this one. You know those parents who aggressively plan out their kids' lives because they don't want them to lose at the starting line? Well, he says they are actually guaranteeing their children will lose at the finish line. Why? Because you're basically pulling up seedlings to help them grow. You're violating nature by trying to hold on way too tightly. And he takes it a step further. The author states that trying to control a spouse is just whimsical and ignorant. In fact, attempting to firmly grasp that control, according to the text, leads to a reality where 95% of men cheat and 95% of women suffer trying to toss out their husbands' mistresses. It's a really bold, intense assertion, but it's used to underscore the philosophy that nothing can be held or controlled indefinitely by anyone. Which brings us perfectly to our third theme, the work and the limits of human action. So if we have to accept our lot in life and stop trying to control others, what does that actually mean for our ambitions, our careers? Well, the author dictates that we must strictly weigh our own abilities and completely avoid taking risks. The argument is grounded in this wonderful proverb, he who has no diamond should not undertake to cut glass. It's like this. The philosophy views humans as containers. You can only hold a certain amount. If your capacity is, say, 80 pounds and you try to carry 100, you're just going to be crushed. If you watch your neighbors building high-rises or becoming internet celebrities, do not imitate them unless you naturally have that exact capacity yourself. To really drive home the danger of overstepping your natural limits, the author asks a series of rapid-fire rhetorical questions. Think about it. What happens when you load 3 tons of cargo onto a 2-ton truck? What happens if you drive 120 kilometers an hour on a curved mountain road? Or what if you pour an entire pot of boiling water right into a standard drinking glass? The container bursts. The message here is crystal clear. Never attempt to do what you naturally cannot do. The author defines this state of being as non-action, or wu-wei. Basically, it means setting 0 goals and doing only what you are predestined to do. Think of a beehive. The queen, the drone, the worker bees, they don't hold democratic elections, right? The queen doesn't call a massive all-hands meeting to assign roles. They just do what they are born to do. The text takes a super rigid stance on human destiny here. Whether you are a president, a beggar, a commoner, or a thief, it is all predetermined. Just as flies cannot produce honey and peach trees cannot bear pomegranates, you cannot change your nature through hard work. But here is where the text takes a truly fascinating turn. Let's look at our 4th theme, the mind, karma, and total freedom. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how, after outlining a worldview where absolutely every physical action and societal role is rigidly predetermined, the author literally defines karma as an unchanging input-output computer program. It's like code. If you input good deeds, meaning acting with dedication without asking for results, those quantitative changes will eventually reach saturation. And then, the program automatically feeds back a heavenly reward, a qualitative change. The text says it's as natural as a melon falling off the vine when the fruit ripens. It's just a universal law. But guys, here is the escape hatch. While the way of nature controls every physical reality and outcome, the author grants complete, unrestrained free will to one single domain: human imagination. That is the one free world bestowed upon us. So in your predestined reality, you might be a beggar, but in your imagination, you can be royalty. You might be single in the real world, but you can imagine 100 spouses. As a mortal human, you are bound by physics, sure. But in your mind, you can literally take the sun away or fly like a wild goose. The author fully encourages this self-entertainment. Crucially though, as long as it remains imagination, just a conscious activity happening in your mind and doesn't cross over into motivation to actually change your physical reality, the universe's causal program will neither punish nor reward it. Inside your head, you are entirely free to fly. Which brings us to the final summary of our explainer: the ultimate outcomes, following versus violating nature. The author leaves absolutely no gray area regarding the consequences of either obeying or defying these 8 principles. He concludes with this dramatic, almost apocalyptic contrast. If you follow nature, if you accept your lot, release control, and practice non-action, the result is harmony, happiness, and ultimately being rewarded by the Tao with a place in heaven. But if you artificially impose your human will onto objective laws, it results in catastrophic natural and societal disasters. We're talking hurricanes, drought, war, plague, famine, and deep personal anxiety. It is a very stark binary choice. And so we are left with a worldview that basically challenges everything modern society teaches us about ambition and striving and control. It really all boils down to this one provocative question: will you exhaust yourself fighting the river's current, trying to force the water where it simply isn't meant to go? Or will you surrender and just let the water flow naturally? Something to think about. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.